So today, me and my roommate were having a discussion, and we talked about baseline. And he was telling me that he has a very strong baseline for the expectations of people. So when somebody says they're going to do something and they don't follow through with it, he has a solid baseline. So it's not really affected whether or not, because he can still, make things happen because his baseline is strong. So I feel like I have a really strong baseline in my career where it's not like I didn't count on people, but I didn't expect, and I definitely did not assume that they would deliver to the level and to the consistency with which I wanted. And so I kept my baseline, which means I kept my planning and made sure that I had everything in place for when they didn't fall through. It didn't affect how I show up or how I come through. And when I think about that emotionally, I realize I don't have a very strong baseline emotionally. So my mood is affected quite drastically when somebody says they're going to do something. I hold them to that standard. I hold them to their word. They say they're going to do something. Now, I'm not saying like if they don't do it, then I'm like super upset. It's more like if they can't communicate with me with which is going to happen, I get really upset. And then if they don't follow through, I don't always have a strong enough baseline to where I would be able to do that for myself. And and so I'm focusing this next couple of months now more on providing for myself an emotional baseline. So when people don't follow through with their word, and they aren't about their values, or their character just isn't what I thought they were, it doesn't take a huge 3 or 4 days to have me bounce back from their lack of capacity, and instead leaning on the fact that I have my own capacity and I have a baseline where I can be like, all right, they didn't say that they were going to do this. I still have a plan. I can still move about my day. And that comes from a really deep sense of self and self-confidence, which is something that I am really working on. I have extreme self-confidence when it comes to my ability to provide a service or sell a product, but not so much when it comes to my value of self. And I've, and of course I've slowly growing, and it starts with baby steps. Like, I no longer kneecap myself when I talk about my business. I do talk about my business as it's a business. I do not let people put little or cute in the name of my business, because that is demeaning. Just because I'm a female doesn't mean that you can cutify or smallify what I do and the amount of things and offerings I bring to the community and I bring to the services and the people that I am a business owner. But on a personal level, it's like if they don't follow through with their word, it's like my whole mood just like completely shifts, like I was really looking forward to this. And I think it's also because I'm so antisocial that like it takes a lot for me to I have to visualize it. Then I have to think of how it's going to go. Then I have to get myself pumped up for it. Then I have to be like, okay, now I have to make it expectationless. So now I have to go. It's like a whole process mentally when I hang out with people. I need to prepare myself so that I can be and curate a space where they can feel seen, heard, and accepted, and also still feel safe within myself. And that's experience-based skill that we all have to learn, and I think we should all strive to learn. And I'm still working on that, but I'm finding it very hard. And when I dive in deeper into why I'm finding this so hard, it's because growing up, I was never given that safety. We always go back to the inner child and what the inner child did not receive or did not get, and that it now has bled into my adulthood. Another thing that while we were having this discussion, another thought that popped into my brain was that I was trying to, and I have been trying to connect the similarities of all of the people that I've allowed romantically or sexually, I shouldn't say romantically, I should say the people that I've involved in my life, because some were romantic, some were sexual, some were friendships, and I'm polyamorous, so to me, the most important relationship is not the sexual or the romantic one, or the sexual and romantic one. The most important relationship is the one I have with myself. And I take that in a value system all over. Anyway, so we were talking about that, and my why is to know autonomy and all that stuff. I kind of lost my train of thought. But I really wanted to talk about just like some of the things that we talked about and some of the things I worked through. And the similarities. So the similarities between that I've seen with the people that I've been the people that I let in close to my life, the people that I shared my vulnerabilities with, because it wasn't always romantic partners. Sometimes it was like really close friends that I felt really like pulled to or drawn to. And what I found was that there was a similarity in all of these people. And it was this is going to sound so fucking harsh because I don't have any other way to say this, but it's not meant to be harsh because I was where they were at, and you can only attract where you're at. And so I attracted a lot of cowards in the fact that they didn't know how to speak their truth, that they were so worried about how what they're going to say is going to make the other person feel that they will often ixnay the honesty of it. And one of the things that like I really, really admired and drew me to the last partner that I invested in was his ability to not factor in my feelings, because at the end of the day, it was the respect. It was, I know that you're going to feel however you feel about this, but I have enough balls and courage and enough self-respect and self-knowing to know that this is what I did, this is what I'm doing, there's no shame in it, and this is how it is. And for me, that takes a lot in a person. Like, to be able to speak your truth, stand by your truth, be a person of your word, you do have to have a really good, strong sense of self. And and my history has been dating cowards because I was a coward. Like, and I don't mean that in like a bad way. Like, being a coward isn't something to be ashamed of first and foremost. It's scary. There's scary things are out there, but there comes a point where it's like, okay, but do I want this to be a characteristic of my life? Or do I want to be a person that can authentically and transparently communicate what I'm feeling, have no fear in what I'm feeling, and it's not like I'm saying, I give a fuck about how you feel, I'm just going to say how I feel. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying go to the extremist and be like, with your words, because I tend to do that. But it's saying that like, I can freely speak my truth, and I'm not afraid of how you're going to react from it because I know where I'm coming from. And I am strong enough and sure enough in myself. And I have the skill to provide a space where you feel seen, heard, and respected, even if we do not agree on something. Even if you can't say something. And I'm not saying like, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, I need to know everything. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to know other people's business. That is also factoring when we talk about transparency, when we talk about that. That was something I really struggled with. Well, how much information do you give a person and blah, blah, blah. And I think it's not about like how much information you're giving or whatever. I really think that it's your ability to communicate to the people that you actually want in your life transparently where you and they stand. You don't necessarily have to give a bunch of details to do that. It's just between you and the other individual. And I noticed that the similarities is because I keep attracting people who are so like, they love everything about me, right? They love this idea of me. And they, yeah, that's, so God, what am I trying to say right now? I lost my train of thought again. The similarity, it's right. So I was seeing all these similarities, and it made me upset because when I look back at that, I didn't view them as cowards. I didn't view myself as a coward. I viewed myself as like a go-getter, super fearless for stepping out. And yes, I was. But if we're talking about emotionally owning how I was feeling, emotionally owning up to the state of mind that I'm in, and emotionally owning up to, like, it's really taking a mirror to yourself and being like, let's take a look at all these ugly parts. And instead of just being like, well, that's just the way I am, how can we change that? How can I maneuver this? Because I always knew that everybody is capable of change, and now science has proved, neuroscience has proved, you can change the way your brain functions and works. It is incredibly difficult. It requires the same amount of consistency and daily effort as getting a fit body does. Mental building is just as tedious and long out as physical building of your body. And so now I've reached a point where like, I don't want to be a coward anymore. And I still catch myself in cowardly like acts. And I really think I should come up with another word beside cowardly, because I feel like it'll just be an affront to somebody who hears this. But I use very strong words because to me that's a trigger word for me. Like, you're acting like a coward. Well, fuck. I am not a coward. I am a person of my word. I do what the fuck I say, and I'm not afraid to say who I am and where I'm about and where I stand, right? And for me, the cowardness came from being able to tell people no. The cowardness came from like people pleasing. Like I was constantly like, what can I do for you? And like, let me just make sure everything's great for you. Like this is the type of girlfriend I was. When I got broken up with, I purposely went through his things, took out all the stuff I gave him, put it in a really pretty blue folder and put it away so that he could deal with his feelings when he was ready. And he didn't have to have random reminders. The fuck is wrong with you, girl? Like, deal with your own shit. You're the one that got dumped and your heart ripped out. What the fuck? Like, so like, you see what I'm saying? Like, I was so worried about how other people were feeling. I never took into account my own. I was so worried. I was too cowardly to face my own feelings. I would rather deal with how can I make these other people feel better than deal with my own shit? How can I be a service to somebody else than actually build up on my own? And this is going to sound backwards, but one truth I was talking to my therapist about this the other day. One truth that's really like resonated with me is I was telling her about this. I was like, man, and you know, what's crazy is like, I don't get mad at them for being that way, or I don't like think less of them, because you can be a coward and be a good person. You can, it's just like a small trait that people have or whatever. And it's one that I have, that I'm working on. And I was telling her, you know, I was like, it's crazy because it's like, it's almost like the people who are so hyper independent have to work twice as hard, because it's literally like we're the biggest cowards. And I say that, and I had to cover my face as I say that, because it's like we are so terrified to lean on other people that we will literally do things ourselves to such a heightened toxic level. Like, not only are we're too cowardly to lean on someone, which is false. True leader has people around him and understands that it's a community and blah 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 and all that stuff, but like I'm not going to go into that, but like, you know what I'm saying. And so my brain died again. This happens a lot. So I was talking to her about it, and I was like, you know, it's wild, because it's like the more I tap into like why I'm so hyper independent, why I have this, it's like the more I realize that like, it's like the more I come into terms with these cowardly mental habits, these mental blocks that I didn't even realize I had barred myself in. One of them being like accepting the way people painted me, because I understood where they were coming from, because I understood their pain, because I could relate and sympathize with their pain. Then I just completely ignored mine. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't want to step on anybody's feet with my feelings, and I didn't want to ever be a burden. I didn't want to be the crazy girl. I didn't want to be the crazy ex. And in the process of that, I constantly let myself down. I was never there for myself. So then now people come into my life and they want to be there. I don't know how to do that. Be there. How can you be there for me? You're going to let me down. And so like, I feel like people who are ultra independent, right? It's like, there's a mean streak of cowardly in there, for being so hyper independent, because, and it comes, and maybe I'm not using the right word. I think I've said that already, but like, for me, that's the trigger word for me, where it's like, okay, now I need to battle this, because I'm not a coward, I'm a warrior, and I'm not afraid to speak my truth, and I'm not afraid to say what's up. And so, I mean, we work at it every day. I do know that it's a lot easier for me to rain check with people. So, and it's becoming easier for me to like take a step back when people are not showing me the respect I feel that I should, as a human being, get. And it's also getting really easy for me to immediately cut out people who are less than in their values around me. And I come from a family of trauma where I constantly had to be hyper aware of everyone's movements, habits, so that I could constantly stay safe. I could stay safe and I could stay unseen. So it's second nature for me to memorize a person's Gantt. That means like the way a person walks. Second nature for me to remember how a person communicates on their day to day. You know what I'm saying? And then those things are really great. But they're trauma responses. And two, it's like I'm constantly living in a world of fear still. I'm constantly living in a cowardly state. thinking like that, analyzing like that, constantly wondering what's the next move going to be, how can I be safe, and letting go of that fear, because I'm no longer in that. I'm no longer a part of that or whatever. So anyway, I just wanted to go over some of my rambling, doodling thoughts that have been happening as I eat this egg bacon thingamabob. And last night I put down a boundary, and so I figured today would be a good day to like fight my cowardly ways and actually talk about where I'm at in my life and where I'm at with my emotions. This next month in September is going to be pretty brutal. There's not going to be a lot of time for socializing. I did recently go out on a few dates. I have been practicing abstinence. I pretty much decided to practice abstinence after my birthday vacation. I want to know what it's like to make genuine connections with people. And I don't really tell people that I'm like abstinent. I don't tell people I'm practicing abstinence. It's none of their fucking business. If it ever even got close to being there, we would discuss it. But the likelihood is so small because I really am right now focused on my business being my number one. And because I'm solo polyamorous, my value is me first. And years and years of toxic monogamy, I find myself putting myself second constantly. Also because women are naturally bred to be a supporting role. We're not really bred to like own into our own narratives. And so this is me trying to break that and own my own narrative for the messy way it's going to be. And one of the things that I have been putting off, which is why this is being posted up today, was I wanted to do tea time. And I've been talking about it for a while, but I wasn't going to do it until one of my friends came in, or she flew in like last month. And she's in San Diego. And we're supposed to start this like, we learn lingerie. And it's still gonna happen. We wear lingerie, we smoke out of a bunch of different bongs, and we just talk shit. And the series is gonna be talking about my monogamy stories. So we're gonna talk about my monogamy dating stories because they're really funny. And I lived out of my car for most of it, so I have a lot of really off the wall dating stories that I would just love to like tell. And so we're gonna do that. But I wanted to also start just like vlogging again, because I used to casually vlog all the time about 6 years ago, and I would just like get on and I'd be like, this is what's going on today, and then one day I got on my YouTube and I was like, people know too much, and I deleted everything. But I really do genuinely enjoy just vlogging and talking, and YouTube's the best place to do it. And I really just have this channel for myself, and I created this channel just to have a space where I can freely talk into the digital world, because the digital world is where I feel like I can show the most of my inner self, because I'm not having to, because I am so energetically connected to my surroundings that when other people are around, how I act and how I am are just like extra hyper bubbly or outgoing or whatever. It's just different with the people. But being able to like just, I don't know, talk about stuff, you know, or just like whatever, it always feels really good. And then the beauty of living in a digital world is like, I can do this and I'll make this video. And then say like, I mean, the goal is to come back like 2-3 years later and be like, oh, what was this about? And click on it like on a haphazard day and be like, wow, look at how much I've grown. Look at how much far I've gone. Actually, I can do that now. There's a video in the past that says, but pizza rolls. And if you watch that video, I talk about how I will never care about my fitness and how I would rather just stay at home and read books all the time. A year later after that, I actually made a vow to myself that I would no longer read books, that I wanted to be a character who lived my life and stop chasing after a fantasy in my head. I was living on island. I had everything out in front of me. Why am I still hooked on this set lifestyle when I could be when I could actually be living? You know what I'm saying? Like, do I want to keep reading about people who have a life, or do I want to have a life? And that's when I made that big jump forward. And I like totally forgot about that like promise I made to self and that situation, and like how I switched from being like a hermit to like trying to put myself out there and like out of the ways. And so I really think that videoing, like just casually vlogging, can be so beneficial to people. And for me, I think it's going to be really good for my mental health, especially right now where I I have few friends, but I have really good friends. But they're also hustlers and entrepreneurs like I am. And they're planners. So we schedule plans to talk about, and we like occasionally text each other. But there's just days where I'm a talker, I'm a philosopher, I feel like at heart. I feel like I was a philosopher in a past life because I just want to question everything. I want to talk about everything. I want to dive deeper in it. I feel like sometimes I may have the mind of a scientist where I just want to well, how does that work? And why does that work? And that, and how does that connect with that? And what about this? And this, and this, and this, and people cannot handle an inquisitive mind. I'll tell you what right now. 95% of the people they feel like they're being interrogated. And me, I'm over here like, wow, what's all this fantastical things? I just want to learn. And, and that gets pretty exhausting for people who are not learners, who are not just driven to learn or driven to understand. And so I think also me being able to talk about this and be able to share myself again, because it's been years since I've vlogged and I've started sharing myself, that it'll become easier when I talk to people. The goal is that I'll already have also gotten out a lot of my ramblings so that when I do talk to people, I can come from a more reserved point of view. And then if people truly wanted to get to know me, if people really wanted to know the ins and outs, all the information is right there. It's just whether or not you have the effort to do it. And I did like that. That is one thing that I truly did like. I did like that if you really wanted to get to know me back in high school, all you had to do is read my blog. And I actually had a blog that was Jade's Triggers, and I wrote it in third person like I was an animal. And then I literally put things that set me off, weird quirks I had. It was 3 pages long. And then I had another one that was how to handle Jade on her PMS, because I literally had a guy in high school say, oh, I just wish girls had a book. But you want to know how many motherfuckers actually read those that I dated, that I sent that to? None of them even followed through. So it's dude, are you going to read if I handed you a book? No. And that's when I learned I need people who are just as ambitious and inquisitive and learners as I am. But the trade-off is that when you meet those people, they also live the lifestyle that I live, which is very much planner, very much job come first, very much if it links up, it links up, and it only links up if it kind of all flows in with what I'm already doing. And that's totally fine. And I love that, because that means that I can plan and things are set up and I have time to visualize or whatever, but I need more. And I think YouTube can give me that little extra more, because I'm also trying to cultivate a friendship with myself. And so cultivating a friendship with myself means talking to myself. Hello, me, and also other people who may be watching this. Also, if you literally listened to me for 22 minutes, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope something resonated with you. And if it did, please leave a comment below. If you didn't like it, thumbs it down. If you did, thumbs it up. Other than that, it really was just for me. And I hope my ramblings brought some light to you. And I hope you really reflect on the areas where you may be acting like a coward. I am not a coward. None of the people I date are cowards, but they had cowardly tendencies. There we go. That's how I should have said it. They have cowardly tendencies, which we all do. I really want to lay that on thick. We all have cowardly tendencies. And it's just learning what they are and how to face them. And I think for me, the one I have the trouble with is the communication, because I'm so willing to communicate, so willing to understand. I somehow keep attracting the exact opposite. People who stonewall, people who do not want to just have basic communication and just learn. So yeah. I feel, you know what? I really was really stressed out about my day. And this actually was fantastical. I felt like I just word vomited enough to move on through my day. So now I'm going to start working on my operations manual, and I'm going to finish. Oh, right. This was my first tea time video. So I actually have a little bit left of this chai tea. Gotta have one sip of tea for my first tea rambling video. Ha! There we go. Right off the bat. So I hope y'all have a great day. And yeah, a million mahalos.